just take her and I'll get you Steve?
Just one thing. You go to our website, I'm sorry to keep bringing this up, but I won't stick with the protocol. On the community board website, if you look up the committees, if you look up Battery Park City, it says there are two subcommittees on it. One is the Walkfield Task Force and the other was the Community Center.
Task Force.
So that, to me, meant that those task force were part of this committee, and therefore this, and if it's not, they should be taken off there and put under the board. Because I would think this committee should review everything that comes out of those task force before they send it to the board. I'm still at, I don't know how the rest of you feel about it. But the fact that two people can write up this MOU and send it off to the authority without us looking at it, and they're part of us, it doesn't sit well.
You, as I mentioned before, you will have an opportunity to look at it once we get back to market.
I understand what you're saying, but I think it's a little bit in the wrong order. I don't know if anyone else.
I agree.
Agree with me on this?
I agree.
Otherwise, take them out and make them report to the board.
That's fine. I'll bring it to the chair then to discuss that.
My question relates to that. So at the joint CB1 committee that was held at the Seaport Museum, I forgot the date of that, you withdrew the attempt to have the modified MOU. You withdrew that. Then Hurricane Sandy came along, a crisis had developed, and all of a sudden we have a new MOU drafted with no one seeing it. No one can see what you're looking at. Why?
Okay, so
What was the reason for this resurfacing?
Probably, I just explained why it's resurfaced. It has always been on the table. Let me explain, and I know we're beating this to death. This was the resolution that I withdrew in the October meeting, which was at the Seaport. There are several whereases. What it resolved was that CB1 calls upon BPCA to expedite the opening of the Battery Park City Community Center immediately. And CB1 urges BPCA and Asphalt Green to conduct themselves in a manner that provides greater transparency in regards to all planning, negotiating, and operating matters relative to the community center. So what we did was, I withdrew it because that was the day that it was announced that they had actually come to an agreement, and Dennis Neal had actually announced the tentative opening date, and so I withdrew it. We further called for them to sit down and finalize an MOU with us. So it did not spell out what that MOU was. As I said, there have been several versions of that. Until we get a marked up copy of it back from the authority, it really is just changing the existing MOU. Person.
I'm just wondering, so what do we have to do yet?
Could we see this? Why is it secret?
Not private, it's posted. I'll send you a copy if you'd like.
The one?
This is the existing MOU?
No, not the existing one. The one that you're working on now.
Not until we get a marked up copy will I release that. Because the board has authorized us to start working with the authority to try and come up with it. To send multiple copies out before anything is settled would be counterproductive.
Wasn't it also outline specific?
That's really about it. Any other questions? Elizabeth?
Well, I think I understand that the MOU in existence for 10 or 11 years, but this is a much different facility, and don't you put out an RFP to contract with an organization, do due diligence to select an organization that's capable of running a facility,
That was done.
programs, etc. Right, it was done, it was selected.
Right.
So why would you want to impose 10 people probably who know nothing about running a facility like
They're
that?
not to run the facility.
To get in the way of their business decisions from an organization that has a 25-year track record of doing this exceptionally well?
Good question, but that's not the intent of the MOU, the original one or any subsequent one. It is to give the Battery Park City Authority and its operator input as to what the community needs are at any given time. I can't tell them what to do at Asphalt Green, nor would I want to. Nor would I empower 10 or 11 people to go and stick their nose in somebody else's business. I agree with you entirely. However, that community center is the property not only of the Battery Park City Authority, it's the property of all of us here in New York City to pay taxes. And so we should have a seat at the table in a discussion about its operation and its long-term sustainability.
That probably should have been done before the contract.
It was in the existing MOU, which I sent you.
Exactly, it just seems a little counterproductive to, after contracts and 4 years of time and money on everyone's side has been spent, to say, okay, well now, 11th hour, and who would make up this committee of 10?
It's pretty clear. It's very similar to what it was originally. community board would have 3 or 4 representatives. The elected officials, it's not squared away yet, but it's a reasonable representation of community members. Not the leagues themselves, okay? The chair of CB1 would appoint several members, actually 5 of them. The head of this committee, the head of the chair of the Youth and Education Committee would be a member. So right there's 7 of those people that would be there. And then elected officials, the council member, the state senator, and the assembly member for the area. So we're not really trying to impose ourselves in Asphalt Green's business. But what we are saying is that this is not only a community amenity, it is a public benefit asset. And the community needs to be able to have a voice in that. I don't know what form that voice takes. And in fact, we, community board, and this advisory group is in fact just that, advisory. So it is there to at least have the residents, the local stakeholders, have a voice at the table. We don't have veto power or voting power on that operation at all. But we can make some suggestions. And it's appropriate to have a mechanism to do that. Rather than have phone calls, people of different issues coming up, it's appropriate to have everybody sit and discuss this and have a reasonable voice about it. Everyone. Because there's been tons and tons of discussion about it, and I want to make sure we're all very clear on it. This is an MOU that was signed in February of 2001 between the community board, the elected officials, and Battery Park City. It has governed since that time for the past 11 years, under which the community center was developed, the ball fields were developed, the AstroTurf was installed. We participated with you in the selection of Asphalt Green. This needs to be updated because when this was done, the assumption was, in fact it's called out in here, that the operator was going to be the Battery Park City Parks Conservancy. That's obviously changed. And so it's appropriate to update this because it is still an in-force document. And we had a meeting about 3 weeks ago, actually the date was November 15, where myself and Catherine McVeigh, who's the chair, it was kind of an introductory meeting with the chair of the new chair of the Battery Park City Authority, Dennis Neal, the COO, Dimitri Boutros, if I'm not, and Ann was there. One of the board members was there, Martha Gallo, who's a resident here. And it was a good introductory discussion with them, and it was kind of setting the stage for how we'll have a dialogue between the community board and the new administration at BPCA. So it was fairly high level. At that meeting, though, I did broach the subject of the existing MOU and the fact that we had tried to revise that. And Dimitri said, fine, send that over to Ann and myself, which I did the following day. So they're looking at both the existing one, which is brand new to Dimitri, since he was there for a week when we hit him with this one. And we sent him over the last draft that Jeff and Mark Costello had worked on, in the hopes of getting feedback from you all. There has been lots of rumors on it. It really is looking to update the existing one in view of the fact that there is a new operator, and the relationship is different now. In fact, we made some changes. The original one had 17 members of this oversight committee. The new one brings that down to 10 or 11 at its most at this point. So we're still looking for feedback. So that's the status of the MOU. It is not in any way to protect particular groups. In fact, the original one calls out that, you know, the community center should be working in collaboration with all of the local organizations. And that's always been the intent of that. So if there are any questions, I'll entertain that, but that's really the status of it. Yes?
Yeah, I think the confusion is that in January of 2010, there was an MOU revision to this MOU that was written and approved.
No.
Yes,
No.
there's the minutes of the...
No. I actually pulled out the resolution. What the resolution said was that it authorized the Battery Park City Community Center Task Force, which I chaired at the time. It authorized us to take that draft and start working with the authority. It had never been worked with the authority.
On the internet, you can actually find the minutes of the meeting and you can find a draft of the revised.
That's right.
There is a,
Yeah.
not a draft, a revised MOU
No.
that was approved.
There's a draft. No, it was not approved. I pulled that resolution.
Okay. And,
The draft is out there. You're correct, Frank.
and
Don't
it
dispute
does
that.
talk about that MOU still on, is that the MOU?
I just
that's
clarified
on the
that, and
table?
I'll repeat it again. That MOU was never approved by the community board.
Right.
It was never signed off by the Battery Park City Authority. Several other versions were created afterwards. We gave a final version that Jeff and Costello had worked on to the authority, I think November 16th, the day after we met with them, asking for them to come back and give us feedback.
All right, so you
We
want
do
to.
not have a revised MOU in
So
place.
you want to send, you sent it to the authority
Yep.
before you brought it to this committee?
Yes,
And why is that?
because
don't
we have a
get to see it.
resolution that says, that the Ball Fields Task Force should work with the authority to come up with a mutually agreed MOU, which would come back to the board for approval.
The board, not to this committee.
Well, this committee can look at it first, I have no problem with that, but the board needs to approve
The
it.
other issue I have is with these task force that are set up. There is a Battery Park City Ball Fields Task Force.
That's
Is that a task force of this committee?
No, it's a separate task force.
So it has nothing to do with this committee.
In fact, that it focuses on a similar property.
So they're not obligated to come back and give us updates on what they're doing.
No, but we probably will.
Because we don't really.
You got an
receive
update.
regular
We've sent over.
So we're not gonna see this MOU until, we're not, as a committee, we're not gonna see this MOU.
You will see it when I get back a revised or marked up copy from the Battery Park City Authority. And then the community center and the ball fields, the contract with Battery Park City and the Asphalt Green is for the community center. They are not the operator of the ball fields. The Battery Park City Authority is. So that will make sure we're clear. One of the things that we did achieve, and they were good enough to work with us earlier this year, is that we moved from 1 year to 3-year permits.
I guess the issue is what does this committee have to do with those task force? In other words, most of the stuff that those committees have been doing may or may not have been brought to this committee.
Well, I can
And
tell
I
you.
don't know if they have to based on what.
I can tell you for a fact that Jeff Galloway, when he was working on the Ball Fields Task Force, specifically on the AstroTurf issue, reported on a monthly basis to this committee on
Right,
every day.
that's the MOU, I guess.
I'm reporting to you now as the MOU.
I know, but we.
Now, Asphalt Green, like anybody else in the city, because they are public parks, will be able to request permits. But at least for the Little League, the soccer league, and I think the football league, and I think even Town League, for some of his programs, the after-school program, were issued earlier this year, I think back in May or April or May, were issued 3-year term permits, which was a nice benefit to them. So yeah, we'll talk about those, and I will bring this all back, but I just wanted to make sure everybody was clear. There is an existing MOU that's been fairly effective for 11 years, and it's appropriate to change it because the relationship of the stakeholders is now different.